Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Money. I'm Money T.
And I am Simply C.
So last week we had an estate planner on.
Yes, Mr. Ben Herrick.
Yes, that was really some wonderful nuggets that he threw out there last week. And I really hope that people took those and started investigating the things that they needed to do to get that estate planning started.
Yeah, one thing that I think is really important to mention is, like me, many people probably think they don't have enough to estate plan. They don't have many assets, that type of thing, in order to do estate planning. But just a reminder that you do. If you have children, if you own a home,
if you got stuff,
if you have a car, stuff, but particularly your children, you know, you want to make sure that if something happens to you, they are in the care of someone that you would actually want them to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And not the court.
Exactly. Not things going to probate and they making the decision for you.
For you, exactly.
So today we are following up with the community's banker, Mr. Theodis Watson.
And the crowd goes, wow.
Thank you.
Yes, he is back in the place. Welcome, Mr. How you doing? How you feeling?
You forgot my name already. No, I'm messing with you. I'm doing really well. I appreciate coming back on and hanging out with the team. It's always a good time and love the information that you all provide to our community.
Yes,
thank you.
We thank you for being part of our community.
Yes,
the community's banker.
That's right. We're trying to build that up. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So last time you were here with us, we talked about PPP.
Yes.
What is PPP again before I say it wrong like I did last time?
Paycheck Protection Program.
So we talked about that, and then we said we would follow that up with the conversation that was specifically about commercial lending.
Correct.
And so that's what we are doing today. We're talking about small businesses, how to prepare for a loan, how you need to get to know your banker to get that loan, or at least help get that loan, and then the different types of loans, right? So that's what we're talking about today. So how you want to start?
Well, honestly, I appreciate the opportunity as always. And my goal is just to come in and really reintroduce myself to the public and who I am. And as you all mentioned, my name is Theodis Watson. I am the community's banker, not baker. I can't cook. You don't want me to bake no cookies. No, they'll turn out pretty brown. But basically, long story short, I've been involved in the financial services industry for close to 20 years, and I've been on the retail side of banking, where normally you go into a bank, you will make your deposits, cash your checks, those type of things. But now I am on the business side and have been involved with the business side for the past 3 years, and just really wanted to continue to connect and develop those, provide that information about what all goes into that. And so, as you mentioned, you know, why am I here? Why do I call myself the community's banker? I just feel like it's my responsibility to serve my community and let them know, hey, we are here to serve. I am here to share information and resources. I've been fortunate enough to work with the low to moderate income areas, but also been blessed to be able to work in one of the wealthiest areas in our city. And so just being able to have both the best worlds has really kind of showed me that there's a lot of resources that I can share, but also be a service to those within my community. So that community is just a vibe. It's just a kind of a way of life and expectation of how I feel we should be connected. And I'm just the banker, right? So there's a bunch of people within this community that share various resources, have various assets, various skill sets, and we can combine those to make our community better. So
sounds wonderful.
Love it.
So today, just kind of talking about, you know, what we're going to talk about today, you know, as we mentioned before, was what does it take for businesses to come in and, you know, possibly get approved for a loan? So we'll talk about what most financial institutions kind of start with when you walk in the door, or when we analyze your situation, I guess. Start with the 5 C's of lending. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And what goes into that is management experience and commitment of owners, credit history of borrowers, you know, financial reporting and repayment abilities, and then adequate equity and collateral. We'll talk a little bit about that. Next, we'll talk about the bank expectations, right? What does the bank want? I hear that a lot where people say, what does it take for me to get a loan? And it's not really difficult, or it's not, rocket science, but I think it's hard. Well, it's hard to know what you want if you don't know what the bank expectations are. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And lastly, the various loan types, SBA financing for credit enhancement and all those type of things.
Sounds good. He got this stuff in order.
Doesn't he?
Well, yeah, this is a light day for us, too.
Just sit
We
back,
just sitting back.
put on cruise.
Should have brought the wine.
Yeah, you should have. I guess water would do. I guess.
Yes. Speaking of water. Go ahead.
So go ahead.
Go
Okay.
ahead,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I didn't know if y'all had any difficult questions because y'all usually bring them.
We'll get into
We'll get-
them.
yeah.
Okay, I love it. So again, let's start off with the basics, right? So the 5 C's of lending, people hear about that or have heard about that. And so this is what basically banks typically look at when we are assessing a borrower, right? So we're going to look at your character. And what that means is, what was your history with past lenders? Did you obtain any legal issues? Did you have any individual or business that seems trustworthy? Capacity. So what we're talking about that is the ability to repay, positive tax returns, not self-prepared, and understand cash flow. And so what we mean by positive tax returns and not self-prepared, I'm going to talk about both of those. So
Yes.
positive tax returns, as you all know, that historically businesses want to write off everything. And we know there's a reason for that, right? You don't want to pay Uncle Sam, and we understand that. But when you come into a bank and asking for a loan, we're going to likely look at that net income, which is that bottom line on your balance sheet and your income statement, just to kind of show what do you have after all your expenses. Can you afford this loan that you're wanting? So if you come to us and have historical tax returns showing a negative net income, I mean, there are some ways that we can add in various things like depreciation and interest expense. But if you don't show many of that and you still show a negative income or a very low positive net income, it's going to be hard for the bank to say you can qualify for this, I don't know, $100,000 loan, which this payment would be X, Y, and Z. Because if anything happens, what could happen is, the bank can show, hey, we did a bad loan. This customer cannot afford this payment. And not only will we can get in trouble as a banking institution from our auditors saying, hey, we're doing bad loans, but now we're setting our customer up for failure. So we want to make sure, and I encourage business owners to make sure when you're looking at that bottom line, and if you are preparing to come in for a loan, just kind of make sure that you have some positive tax returns, because you're just entrusting us that you can qualify for this additional loan payment. And not self-prepared. One thing I talk about that is, if you're making $1 million worth of business, you
should be able to afford to pay to get your taxes.
You cannot to afford to, right? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want the IRS, the government, come back and audit your books and say, hey, are these numbers legit? But also from a banking standpoint, you're showing you're grossing this amount of money, but you can't afford to have an accountant. Sometimes that can be looked down upon, not saying all, that you could be finagling the numbers, right? Are these numbers legit? So how are you going to legitimize your business? It's a good chance of, not saying the bank don't believe you, but it could be something that doesn't look as truthful if you're making this amount of money and you got self-prepared tax, because anybody can finagle numbers, right? So the banks just wants that trust.
That was one of my questions.
What's that?
Why not self-prepared? What's the downfall to that? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
you answered that.
Well, I have a question, but it's probably off. But it just popped into my head when you were talking about preparing your taxes and you having the negative and the deductions and all that. And it just made me think about like the things that's in the news now and how the rich don't pay taxes.
Right.
And so then the wealthy don't. And so I'm guessing that they have all these deductions, I'm guessing, or is it that they have billions? So is that the gap difference? I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand why where you have the lower percentage people that are trying to make it, and they're trying to use the things that are the tax loopholes that are given or
Right.
deductions that are given. But if they use them, it's a problem. But if the rich use them, they skating.
I mean, that's a valid point, and that's something that we'll, it's understanding, learning how to play the game right. So if you have, the billionaires per se, they have fancy accounting, right? So they have those accountants that can make those numbers look, good, right? However, they also probably already have the cash flow and they already have the line of credits in place, so they can do that. So if you're starting a business and looking to get into that space, I always tell a lot of my clients, like, if you're starting from A, don't expect to be at Z like next week. It's just a process, it's a time. So to your point, yeah, they do that. But however, they may have already have those resources in place where they can do that. If you're starting a business or just now, 2 or 3 businesses in Kansas City and you're, trying to make a living, if you're not at that status yet, you can't play into that game yet.
And this, how do you get to that status? It's kind of like that. I mean, it's like, how do you get there? It's like we stay pushed down, and
Yeah.
then then there's the billionaires.
Right. And I think the goal is continue to, share information like you all are doing. The more we talk about it, the more ways we can get there. But we have to understand that there's a game that we need to play. We got to find resources and alliances that can help us get there, right? And then we can play that game. But until we are there, we kind of got to play the game until we are able. But to your point, you got to understand that's why planning for your business is so important. So if you want to buy a building 2 or 3 years from now, then that might be the time where you might show some growth, right? You need to start showing some growth because typically businesses look at 2 to 3 years worth of tax returns. Yeah, you want to show some growth. Yeah, you might have to pay Uncle Sam those years, but at least hey, I want to buy this building in 2 or 3 years. Now, and that's where that planning and a good CPA and accountant comes in, because they can kind of help you prepare for that. So if you are just needing to buy a piece of equipment, or you willy-nilly want to buy a building, if you're not ready, if you don't have that cash flow, you're not ready yet. So that's why that planning piece is very important. You had someone here last week talking about, preparing for the future. We have to kind of plan for that future, because if not, we're going to be making, what is that term when you buy something like a bag of chips when you really don't need it? Impulse buying, right? So now you're doing some impulse lending, and that doesn't always work better for the bank or the client, because they're not prepared for that loan. Something like buying a building. Hey, your furnace goes out in year 1. Do you have enough cash flow to fix that furnace and continue to make payments and to continue to function as a business? So those are some things you just have to think about.
Good stuff.
So we talk about collateral, number 3. So you got character, you got capacity. Now we're talking about collateral. So what assets are you willing to pledge, personal or business? And then it's really there just to minimize the risk for the bank. So I'm going to backtrack into that. So people think banks typically, I have this building that's $100,000, just use that as collateral. You should be able to give me a loan. Not necessarily. Now, the collateral may appreciate or appraise at a proper level. However, what are you as a borrower? Do you show the levels that you can make our payment? Because we really are not in a real estate game. We loan money on real estate, but we really don't want that building, right? We really don't want your home. But but you got to also show that you have enough collateral and also the capacity, as I said before, to be able to meet that expectation, right? So those are some things that you want to think about, because I hear that all the time. I got this building, but you're not showing any positive tax returns. On top of that, you show me you got $3,000 in the bank. It's like, okay, worst case scenario, if you run into a hardship, that $3,000 is going to be gone, within a month or 2 weeks. So really understanding that, yes, collateral is very important, but it's just a piece of the puzzle to when you're looking for a loan.
Yeah, collateral makes me think about Note Starter and the skin in the game.
Right.
I was thinking about that too, skin in the game.
How much skin in the game do you have? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's good. People don't want to hear that. They're like, but like, yeah, you gotta invest something, or you gotta have something up the table, because the banks want to know, hey, we're going to take this, 85% loan to value. So you're only really putting 15, 20% into the deal, but we're taking the risk on 80%.
Right.
That's there's a big difference there. And then assets willing to pledge. So people don't think, be prepared for the bank to ask possibly, for your home as collateral, or, that property as we talked about. And people say, what's a business loan? Why do you need my personal business? I get it. But if the business fails, who's going to pay that loan back? Right. You're going to be responsible. Yeah. Back in the day, pre 2008, that kind of screwed it up for everybody. But you used to get a loan based off your business. But now banks sparking up a little bit, like, okay, we had a lot of property on our deck. We had a lot of collateral that was just out there that we cannot do anything with because we didn't have anyone to fall back on. That's why they typically want you to have a personal guarantee or something like that to be able to cover their losses if they have to, go that route. Again, we don't want it. If we sell the property, sell the equipment, we're not going to make much money off of it. So that's just a small piece of the puzzle. Capital, which kind of talks about what you talked about, Miss Melanie, about the skin in the game. Do you have reserves for the what if? Do you have liquid assets? Do you have the ability to repay in lean times? Who knew that the world was going to shut down last year, right? So just making sure that you have your skin in the game, you have some assets available, some cash available. You just want to make sure you have that because, again, the bank wants to know what your personal net worth could be. Conditions, state of the economy. As you know, we're kind of in that now. What can your business can your business survive during times like this, right? Or is it Amazon proof is what we say of our herd, because you got to think about it. Amazon's taking everybody out. I mean, they're about to get in food, delivery. So what type of business are you in that can support this loan? Is it something that can survive? Is it something that if the pandemic goes out, which everybody was impacted, but a lot of people thrive during this time? Is your business that way? What trends are particular industries? So do you have is your industry declining? In the movie theaters again. I mean, movie theaters going to have some big change. Now you may have heard Amazon is just bought MGM, right? So they're about to get into the movie business, right? There's going to be a lot of movie theaters impacted, but we just got to want to make sure, can your industry survive, challenging times? Location of business. I have people all the time want to buy this building, but it's behind the warehouse, right? So yes, it may be a good value. However, that may not be a good location for your hair salon, right? So how are people going to find you? Are you in a good location? So banks look at that as well to determine, is this a good investment for us too? We may even consult and say, hey, let's try to find you another location. But again, we just want to make sure your location can survive. And then lastly, supply and demand. Do you have a business or do you have a hobby? Do you have customers that you can actually sell to? Because again, if you don't have a market for your business, how do you plan on surviving? So those are certain things of the 5 C's that we look at when we're looking at your business.
So I'm wondering if there should be like a 6th C.
Probably.
And in my mind, I'm thinking color.
Oh, okay. Speak on that.
Well, we know that it plays a factor.
I agree.
And so how do we play that game?
You know what? It's all about making it hard for them to say no, right? I understand, me being in the banking industry, I know that there has been some discriminatory practices, right? If you haven't read The Color of Law, it talks about how historically, the industry, all the way from the president creating laws to be able to minimize
or
redlining, lending, banking relationships, all of that into various areas of color. My main thought is, one, which that's something I'm continuing to speak on. We need to hire and we need to find more commercial lenders who understand our areas. That's just thought, because the only way we're going to continue to grow and minimize that challenge is if we have people of color in leadership positions, not just commercial lenders, but CEOs, chief credit officers, who can vouch for these businesses in the urban core or whatever color, women, to be able to relate to these folks so they can understand, because every deal is different, right? And it's all about banking. It's a lot about banking relationships. So you're right. Color is a thing. Also, number 2 is, not only do we need to hire more people, we need to get people more employed and engaged in the financial service industry, but also we need to educate people about how to get that money. So there's a lot of misinformation about how you are able to get loans, what you need. Some of it is right, some of it is incorrect. So we need to make sure people are equipped and educated about what it takes to get a loan. So what you all are doing is awesome. And I would say lastly, it's really about relationship, right? Knowing your banker, and we talked about that, is, regardless of what color you are, if your banker understands you, knows you, know what path you are going. I know, just like with any other profession, there's bad people and there's good people there, but I know there's a lot of good bankers of all colors who are willing to share and help and help people grow within whatever business they're in. So you have to develop a relationship with your banker if you're in business. I think hands down you need that, because there's so many other things that a banker can do. So they can refer you to other people, they can find you resources, they can help you get to the money. They can, vouch for you when, if the bank is not unsure, there's some things that we can do to kind of fight for the business, right? And so, especially if we know you. So I think, understanding, who your banker is, developing their relationship, don't come to them only when you need something. I think those are very important for people of color, because again, as you mentioned, we haven't historically been likened in that area, right? So we need to continue to build those and provide those resources.
Good answer. I mean, start there.
That's good. That's great. That's great. No,
start there.
It is, just because we have some true stories. We know somebody who was a banker, who is a banker, branch manager, and she was a branch manager at a urban core bank, and would see people continuously get denied. And she moved to another branch in another area and has seen people with the same
credit score
and credit history and that type of thing, but a different color, and get approved with no problems.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
as I said, I worked in the low to moderate income areas, and I worked in the wealthiest, and I've seen, and that's so true. But also, that banker makes sure that banker know who you are, so they can fight on your behalf. But it's also our bankers to make sure we fight for our customers, right? And a lot of us do, because in the same boat where I had to kind of make some phone calls like, hey, what's the deal with this? And we were able to get it done. But you're right. And it's unfortunate. However, it's, again, educating our folks and creating those resources. And it shouldn't have to be that way. Again, that's just the way it is. You got to learn the game. You got to play with the game, until we get ourselves in that position. And it's a difference if you didn't know that was the game. Now we know that's the game.
Yeah.
Now we just got to make it happen.
I'm ready.
Right.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Meet people.
Yeah. Again, even with the PPP situation, we talked about that. I know we're going to go into preparation, but I just know that I've learned a great deal through that process. I was having people call me at 6, 7, 8, 4 in the morning, text. Crazy, because they heard, hey, so-and-so heard I got it through or whatever. And they called me and I was able to get it done. So without having that connection, that relationship, it's going to be challenging. So, yeah.
So we were going to get into preparations.
Yes, ma'am. So the preparation piece. So this is really, I think, is the main portion of when you coming in and considering getting a loan. What does the bank need? What do we want? What are some things that the banks are looking for, right? So I always go back to, you only know what you know. You only know what you do know. So how can we as financial leaders expect to do more loans in the color section of the 5 C's, right? How can we get better at improving that if we're not telling people exactly what they need, right? So customer A comes in, they're looking for a loan. Typically we handle a standard business application, right? So the business application, everyone's application is different, but mainly just asking for what your loan amount is, who you are as a business. We need your EIN number or social security number if you are a sole proprietor, and just a basic information about you and the business. A business plan. So we don't need a James Patterson novel, right? So don't give us like a 50-book page document, right? But it is really good for the business owner to have a business plan, really, to kind of keep them on track, so they're not jumping all over the board. But in that business plan, we're going to want some information, again, like who you are as a business, who are your target audience, who are you trying to sell to, other pieces in there, maybe some projections or pro forma, what you expect, which is what you expect to make within the next 2 or 3 years, right? We want to see that you've done some research, you know a little bit about your business, you know how much you may sell your widgets for. So those things in your business plan are very important. We can look through it because we're going to pull various things out, but those financials, learning about your business, again, like a management bio, I call it. So in your business plan, it just tells you what's your experience in this business, right? So if you were a radio DJ, you want to start a podcast, you need money for that. Okay, talk about your experience as a radio DJ. What are some things that you've done? You know, what you know, kind of numbers you pushed out before. Again, just need to know about your business. We don't want you to be going into starting a podcast as a, you know, well, I guess I can't say that. Let's just say you're going into baking cakes, but you just came from working 30 years in the auto industry. Like, okay, you got to tell us how you are planning on baking cakes. Maybe it was a hobby. Maybe it was, so you got to give us some type of feedback, some data in there in that business plan that tells us what your experience is and who is your team. And your business plan talks about, do you have a marketing person? Do you have an accountant? Do you have an attorney? Do you have co-owners? Do you have silent partners? What does that look like to get us familiar and comfortable with doing business with you? Okay, so now you got your banking application, you got your business plan, last 2 years of business and personal tax returns. If you're a new business, yes, you won't have any tax returns for the business, but you should have personal tax returns. I can't tell you how many times I get asked for a loan and the man ain't filed taxes the last 2 or 3 years.
What?
No, it happens. I'm telling you. So that's why I encourage people, you got to make sure you take care of your business, right? And then they say, the banks ain't for us. They ain't. I'm like, come on, man. But make sure you file your taxes. So we typically want 2 or 3 years of business tax returns, depending on the loan amount, but 2 or 3 years of business and personal tax returns. If you make $1 million worth of business, please have an accountant or some type of tax preparer. Interim profit and loss and interim profit and loss and income statement, and also a balance sheet. So basically what that talks about is literally how much money have you made, you got all your expenses, and at the end, what is your net income, right? What is that bottom line? Typically, let's say we want 2 or 3 years worth of business tax returns. You might have 2018, 2019, 2020 is not done right. That's that interim. Just give us a year-end profit and loss income statement to show us what you did at the end of December 31, so we know kind of idea of what type of money you've made.
Right.
Those are certain things that we will want to know on that interim income statement. And people need to know what that is. I can't tell you how many times we ask that specifically through this PPP program. Hey, we need an interim profit and loss statement, blase, blase. And sometimes they couldn't, or they didn't even know what it was. So again, just educating, Google what these terms are so you know exactly what it is. You probably already do it. Sign up for a QuickBooks class at one of these small business development centers. A lot of times they're free, or maybe, I don't know, $50. You cannot afford not to do it. But there are some real basic and free classes out there to understand the profit and loss. Also, it's real good to help because that will tell you where your trends are, right? What time of year is your slow months? What time of years are your high months? So at least you can talk about that to the banker so you know when your slow times, when your positive times. The banker's going to ask that. Do you have any seasonality issues? Do you have some seasonal times? Da-da-da. So we're going to ask you about this. We just encourage the business owner to kind of know a little bit about that. Your schedule of debts. We want to know how much debt you have on the business. And then we're also going to likely pull your personal credit report, right? So we're going to look at your personal tax returns. Not get it all, or your personal credit. I get it all the time. It's a business loan. Why do you need to know what I owe personally? Again, if the business fails, we got to come after somebody, or we got to have the conversation with somebody, not just the business, because the business is gone. But also, it's not always 100% true. But if your personal credit is not up to par, that's a good reflection, or possibly a reflection of your business,
How you handle your
responsibilities.
business.
Right. So do you have a 0 credit score because you never took out credit, you pay cash for everything? That happens. I've loaned against that, right? But again, what's that story? Why don't you do it? You know, what happened to your credit score? You go through a bankruptcy, you just have a bad fallout, whatever the case may be. You got to be able to prepare for that. So we want to know how much the business owes on debt and how much you owe on debt personally, because that can really impact you paying us back. And we want to make sure everyone is all on the same page. Cash flow projections, just like I talked about in the business plan, how much do you anticipate making within the next 2 or 3 years? It's a good thing to know what you can possibly make because you've done your research. And B, what the bank is going to do is look at your projections after 2 or 3 years, and they're going to say, hey, they exceeded their expectations. Do they need more money? We can loan them more money. So those are certain things that you can, that we talk about, that cash flow and forecast. Because again, how much do you anticipate making over a certain period of time? We talk about that personal financial statement. So you got your business plan, you got your banking application, you got your tax returns. Now we're going to know what's your personal financial statements like, right? So how much are you actually worth as an individual? Your net worth and your liabilities. Google that. There's a billion forms out there about what that looks like. But basically what they're going to see is how much cash you have in the bank, how much, let's say, real estate you own, and I don't know, credit card debts, whatever, cars, whatever. And on the liability section, they're going to talk about how much you owe your creditors, how much you owe on your house, how much you owe on your car. And so we're going to look at that and see how much you're actually worth. And so if you are coming in asking again for $100,000 loan and you may have, $2,000 to $3,000 in the bank, that doesn't look favorable to a bank, because again, if you have to put up 15-20% of cash down, where is it going to come from?
Where's it coming from?
Oh, you're going to borrow it from CC over here? Oh, okay. So what's your loan terms, right? So we want to know what you are capable of being able to pay. And again, during those downtimes, if you buy this building and your furnace goes out, do you have enough to cover that challenge? And then lastly, we talk about the proposed collateral. Does your collateral there? Do you have enough? And then again, does your borrower know your business? Is this actually a business, or is this actually a hobby?
So those loan types. I want to get to the loan types, sir.
Okay, I love it.
But real quick, you know what? I was thinking about this too when you were talking about the which one was it? The personal financial statement. We had talked about this before, where they can go to mint.com. So for those people that don't want to do that paper stuff and they just want to get on the computer and type all that in.
Yeah.
All of that is just like right there, and it'll pull everything together.
Right.
So guys, you can go to mint.com and check that out.
Create a profile there. Yep.
Another good place is annualcreditreport.com, where you can check your credit score. And that's to show all three. I encourage people to take a look at that as well, because some banks use that as well to pull credit or to review your credit as well. So, yep.
That's what's up.
So you said loan types, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's one in particular I had a question about though. But you do because you've been running the. You've been running this thing.
So
we joke about it, but we love it.
No, I'll get it. And I love it. And I'm not very. I try to be as organized as possible.
And you are.
I don't want to
hit
anything.
Together.
But loan types, and please jump in with any questions. But. And I mean that. So acquisition loans, right? So, hey, customer A wants to buy their accounting firm, right? They've been working for this accounting firm. The partner wants to bow out, retire. There's a couple of partners that want to buy that business. Acquisition loan. You're buying a particular practice, or a construction company buying out the owner. A couple owners either want to buy it. There's another type of loans that we can offer on the bank side. Commercial real estate loan. Long story short, you're buying a commercial property. You want to move your hair salon in. I don't know why I keep saying hair salon, but you want to move your hair salon in. You want to buy that building. There you go. There you purchase that commercial real estate. Equipment loan. So you are a construction company. You want to buy a backhoe, right? You got this heavy piece of equipment. I need to buy this particular equipment. I want to buy this loan. I want to obtain a loan to buy that particular equipment. Refinancing existing term loans. So any small businesses out there that may have a loan, this could be a good chance to start refinancing your debt.
Can I go back to equipment? Sorry.
Absolutely, yeah.
So is it a minimum or maximum amount?
Depends on that bank.
Okay.
Yeah, some banks like them $25,000 and up. Some banks can do a $10,000 truck loan. Depends on what that bank's appetite is, and that's another thing. Every bank has a different appetite. So again, that's why knowing your banker and knowing what they can offer you is very important, because they'll tell you, I can't do it, but let me get you over to my guy over here who does equipment loans for $15,000. And they can get you done. And bankers don't mind competition. It's not even competition. It's just taking care of the customer. And if your banker can't do that for you, he or she is not the bank for you. Okay. But yeah, different types of loan balances depends on that bank's appetite. Refinancing existing loan, as I was mentioning, you're buying, you have this commercial property, you've owned it for 5 years. Like now, interest rates are extremely low. Hey, you were paying 8%. I had a situation where construction company was paying 9% on their loan, right? Like, dang. So we did their PPP loan, brought them over to our bank, got them taken care of. Now they're paying 4.3%.
Wow. Half.
Winning. So now this guy has same amount of terms, able to pay that off. And he actually said, I'm going to keep paying what I was paying at the other bank. I wanted to get you all of my hair in about 10 years. I did a 15-year note, right? So that helps him pay down that principal and interest faster. So if he does have a hardship or a slow month, he can rear back his payments and continue to make payments where he normally would. So again, refinancing your loan from another creditor could be a good time to do it now that interest rates are lower. Vehicle loan, obviously I do those a lot. It's a commercial vehicle. So if you own a 18-wheeler truck or you're looking to buy one, or looking to buy a utility vehicle for your business, those are really popular now with specific contractors. We can do that.
Oh, it has to be a utility vehicle.
Or no, it can be a truck, a box truck, whatever you have. I mean, as long as it's for the business, you can use it. The line of credit and revolving line of credit, I get that all the time saying, hey, I need a line of credit. People talk about that all the time. Like, okay, tell me what you need it for. So sometimes they may need the line of credit for, I want to buy a piece of equipment. Now, that's not a line of credit. That's an equipment loan. But line of credit is typically, hey, you have $100,000 out there. You work on projects and you want to use it to kind of help until you get paid for. Let's say you're working on a project for the city. I dig holes for the city and I need to pay my payroll, pay for my equipment, and then they'll pay me 30, 60 days later. Okay, yeah, we'll give you a line of credit based off of that contract or, for, working capital. And then once you get paid back from the city, you pay that $60,000 back down, and now your line of credit is back to zero. Mm-hmm. And so it's supposed to ebb and flow, supposed to go up and down and fluctuate. If you keep it paid at $100,000, banks don't like that because you're not using it the way you need to use it. Your line of credit should go up and down, up and down, up and down. And that way, so you can use it when you need it. And it's not pegged at $100,000, because now that's a term loan now, because all you're doing is paying down the interest on line of credits. Typically, you're not paying down principal and interest on a lot of lines of credits.
So usually, what's the interest rate on the line of credit?
Good question. Most line of credits are based off of Wall Street Journal Prime, so they can adjust daily or annually, depending on what your lender does, but it'll adjust daily. So, Wall Street Journal Prime is 3.25%. They may do 3.25% plus 2%. So it'd be 5.25%, right? So if and it will adjust. So regardless of wherever that Wall Street Journal Prime lands, it'll adjust to that. Some of them will have a floor, some of them will have a cap, meaning they won't go over these numbers. But typically it's based off of Wall Street Journal Prime plus maybe 150 basis points.
So what's the difference between a personal line of credit and a business line of credit?
One's for personal, one's for business.
I mean, do you have to do anything different to get the other one, to get the business one?
You fill out the business application for that.
And they're going to, so will they do it? Is it just like a list of things they'll do it for? You have to tell them what you want it for, and it's just a list of things that they'll give it to you for, or how does that work?
It depends on what the need is, right? So people say, hey, I need a line of credit because I own properties, and I want a line of credit to be able to use to either buy properties or to fix on them. Okay, good. All right, well, tell me about what your projects. Well, I got these 2 houses that I own free and clear, right? And I want to buy these other 2 properties, and I'm thinking about flipping them, right? Oh, okay, that sounds good. So what we'll do is we can use maybe the equity out of your ones that you own free and clear, do a line of credit based on those. Let's say you fix up this property that you want to buy, you bought it, you fix it up. Let's say your line of credit is $100,000, but you only use $50,000 in that project to flip that house and to get it up to speed and ready to sell. What you may do is you get the line of credit, you withdraw it. You do what you need to do on this property. Let's say you're looking to flip it or sell it. You sell it in 60 days, 90 days. You make $100,000 off. You put $50,000 back on your line of credit. You pay that down. Now that's zero. You got $50,000 in profit. So that could be a way of leveraging that line of credit.
Question. So is it not better to, so you have a home that's free and clear, to just pull money out of that?
Are you talking about your personal home or investment property?
The investment property.
Okay.
And just get a term 5-year loan off of that. Like, which one is better when you think about interest? So that it's going to be higher. So yeah.
No, I got you. So if you want let's say you want a long-term fixed rate, right? So again, you're going to use this property that you own, take the equity out. Let's say you want a lump sum loan. You don't want a line of credit, you want a lump sum loan. So what you'll do is you'll pull, again, same analogy, you have $100,000 worth of equity in there. Let's say you loan $50,000 fixed. It'll be fixed for 5 years, but you may have like a 20-year amortization, which means your payments are based off of 20 years, but it's fixed for 5 years. At that 5 years, what the bank will do, either will likely renew that loan as long as you make good payments. And then after you renew it, because your payments will be fixed at a certain amount, your interest rate won't adjust. Then at 5 years, it'll fix for another 15. And then after you do another 5 years, fix for another 10. Hopefully you've been able to pay that loan off within that time frame. Interest rates on a fixed loan are better. So they're typically around, right now, you can get 4.5, 4.35 right now for that, because they're a fixed term and the bank knows how much they're going to make off of this at the end of this term. Line of credits, they're a little higher because they fluctuate and we don't know how much you're going to use.
Okay.
Because it costs the bank to keep those line of credits on the books. So it's cost of doing business. So that's fine. It's a good question. Lastly, you have 2, commercial and business credit card. I encourage everybody to at least get a commercial or business credit card if you are in business. That's one way of you developing or starting some credit with your institution, right? So now they know what your payment history is like. And a lot of times you can get like a $25,000 unsecured credit card. And as long as your credit is decent, and you'll be able to use that. No collateral needed. It's typically a couple pages application, whatever their bank or credit union does. And so that's one way of establishing some credit for yourself. And for the business. And then the SBA loan, which we can speak all day about that, but the Small Business Administration, basically.
But you only got 5 minutes.
Tell me. Okay, so SBA, and again, this is
and not really 5, but
right.
Go ahead.
I know. I think that's true. Yeah.
I'll
there we
wait.
go. No, but SBA is basically a guarantee-backed loan for the government. So basically, they help banks do loans what traditionally we may not want to do. So we talked about that acquisition loan, right? It's an accounting firm who wants to buy, well, there's a couple people within this accounting firm who wants to buy out this partner. Accountants really don't have much collateral. A lot of times they don't own their building. All they have is computers and software and clients. So what they'll do is they will use the SBA to help mitigate the risk for the bank. So although the accounting firm is making a lot of money, they're doing a lot of business, we know it's a good deal, but there's no collateral. It could be tight. However, we got this SBA guarantee. They may go up to 75, 85% loan to value, or 85, 75% guarantee on the loan. And what they'll do is they'll cover the bank, and the bank does a loan. But if worst case scenario, that accounting firm can no longer pay back their notes, pay back their loan, the bank can get 75% of that money back from the SBA. And now the SBA has to deal with this. Now the SBA is dealing with the customer, so or the borrower, which you don't want them in your business. But the bank still has to do a lot of legwork, a lot of paperwork to keep that file intact to get our SBA guarantee back. But that's one way of helping us support small businesses. Typically, when we wouldn't do that deal because there's no collateral, there might be some other things there that we don't feel not quite comfortable with, but we can leverage the SBA to get the deal done.
Do you shy away from it though?
I'm the SBA lender, so I can't. So, but we have to make sure, we still got to make sure the deal is good. And some banks don't or do shy away with it because they don't want to deal with the paperwork. They don't want to deal with the government. It is sometimes a lot of work to maintain that file. So there are some things that you have to do to ensure you get your guarantee purchase back. So to your question, yes, a lot of banks do shy away from it because they're not comfortable with it. But the ones that do, they thrive because now they understand the process, and that's just an added tool to the tool belt to help further serve our customer.
Okay. Good stuff, Theodis.
Woohoo!
Yes.
So are there extra steps to take to get an SBA?
Yes. So there's, still the application process, the projections. There's a package that you have to submit that the bank has to submit to the bank. A lot of times the bank either outsource or will package that deal themselves. There's typically a cost to package an SBA loan because it is a James Patterson novel that you have to send to the SBA. But the SBA is really good. Other than really completing the documentation, having your projections in place, there's really not extra steps. You just have to kind of go through the process, right? But the benefits of the SBA is help you with the collateral shortfall, longer repayment terms. Typically, we may not do a loan for 5 years fixed, maybe our max. With the SBA, we can go up to 10. If there is real estate, we can go up to 25. No balloon payments, so we can't call your note as long as you're making payments. So the bank historically can't say, we don't like this business because they had a couple bad years. We need you to find another bank. That's a thing. So what we can do, as long as you're making payments, as long as you're being positive and doing what you need to do, you have the SBA financing in place. We can't call your note. You continue to retain full ownership in the business. So although you got that SBA guarantee, the government doesn't want your business. They won't step in as long as you are doing what you're supposed to do. Equity injection. So we talked about making sure a borrower have to inject 15, 20%. Typically, you could just inject 10% into a deal. And again, based on the lender's expectations, they can request 15 or more. But historically, normally a borrower only has to inject 10% into the deal, which is a smaller equity injection. And again, you do need your projections for startups or early stage businesses. And then lastly, it gives businesses access to capital that they would not have before. So that is the SBA lending process.
Wow.
There's that wow. Huh?
It is a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And I'm really seriously thankful that there's somebody like you who really cares about the community and people who may need loans, and you're there to guide them through the process of getting that money that is out there and available, because people don't know, and the process can be exhausting, which could be why people don't do it, because it becomes too much, and so they just choose not to do it. Me and T and even though Theodis, we strongly encourage and love and push entrepreneurship. And so when people need that money, we want it to be available there. So thank you so much for coming. If you got any contact information you want to leave, now is your moment. Oh man, follow me on LinkedIn. I need to work on other social media mediums. I really do. But LinkedIn is about as complicated, or I don't even know, LinkedIn easy as it gets.
Yeah, there we go. The easiest as it gets. Inbox me. I love to share information, love to support. I am also the Western Region Vice President of Urban Financial Services Coalition, which is basically a leadership of financial service providers who have access all across the country. But basically, we are out here to educate and support and also engage people to be more in the financial service industry, because there's a lot of need and there's a lot of great opportunities involved in that.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah. And I am Simply C. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Simply Custom Wood Designs. It's my turn to mess it up. Simply Custom Wood Designs.
And I'm Money T. As you know, I am a travel advisor. Be sure to look at my website. It is priceless-destinations.com. There you will find a travel store and you'll have all your travel needs met. Also, there is an ultimate packing list. All you have to do is go in there and put in your destination and your travel dates. You get your weather, you get the things that you need to pack. So check it out. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Priceless Destinations. And remember, your money mindset matters. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Guys, you can find us at Let's Talk Money on Facebook. And you can listen to us every Monday on the 8th, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.